Can you remember when we all kind of liked Elon Musk? Yeah? Like electric cars, space travel, solar panels. Because there was a time, wasn't there, that he felt like the closest thing that we had to a real life Tony Stark.
The determined engineer's big dreams transformed 3 industries.
Here's an immigrant from South Africa coming to America.
Elon Musk is the Tesla man, whose developments of electric cars and space rockets is seeing technology push the boundaries like never before.
Because the guy was going to save the planet. There was something really ambitiously hopeful about him.
We have a very important environmental problem that needs to be addressed, which is driven by the burning of fossil fuels and the increasing CO2 concentration in the atmosphere and global climate change, which I think is going to be one of the most significant issues of the 21st century.
But now, he's this.
Yes!
What happened to him? Because actually there's an answer. There's a scientific answer. The research predicted what would happen to Elon Musk with the kind of precision that would make Tony Stark boggle. So I'm going to start us off on an experiment that looks completely ridiculous. Much like...
Yes!
What I want you to do is to draw the letter E on your forehead. The capital E. On your forehead with a finger. Write it on. Go on, do it. Now, which way did you draw it? Because if you drew it so that someone looking at you could read it, you're naturally the kind of person that thought about the person opposite you. You stepped outside yourself. You took somebody else's perspective. But if you drew that E so only you could read it, essentially backwards to everyone else in the room, you didn't. Now, researchers at Columbia Business School ran this experiment with 2 groups of people. Group 1 were asked to recall a moment where they had felt powerful, in charge, or had authority over someone else. And Group 2 were asked to recall a moment where they felt powerless.
Low power people, no trouble. They do it right away. Okay, yeah, no, I can see what you're thinking, and they reverse orientation. High power people on the right, 40% of them absolutely could not do the task. They're like, oh, sorry, I drew it from my perspective again. Let me try one more time. Oh, I did it again.
Your brain, just from remembering what it felt like to be in charge, began to lose its ability to see the world from another person's point of view, like that quickly. Because your brain is basically a golden retriever, right? Somebody throws a ball, and in this case, the ball is a memory of being important, and it immediately forgets there's anyone else in the park and runs over 2 toddlers. Now, imagine what happens with 20 years of being the richest and most powerful private individual in the history of the planet. More than 100 years ago, the historian Henry Adams wrote that power is a sort of tumour that ends by killing the victim's sympathies. And at the time, I'm sure Henry Adams thought he was being poetic, but modern behavioural research actually shows that he was being medical. Because the last 50 years of neuroscience and psychology has shown us that power is actually not a metaphor for corruption. It's a toxin, like radiation, like lead in the water. And the more concentrated the dose, the more power, the more wealth, the longer the exposure, the worse the damage becomes. And that's the science of what happened to Elon Musk. Because in a way, Elon Musk has had the arc of a supervillain. You know supervillains, they all have an origin story, and in pretty much, well, all of them, there's a before, right? They start off good. There's a moment where they were actually recognizably human. Magneto survived the Holocaust. Thanos watched his home planet Titan collapse.
I ever see you again?
Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, was taken from his mother. Voldemort was at an orphanage. Sauron spent 3 years teaching jewellery metalwork to underprivileged hobbits in Middle-earth. And Count Dracula organised an annual Transylvanian blood drive for 12 consecutive years. For a supervillain, you need a before, because without a before, it's not a tragedy. It's just a monster. And with Elon, it's a tragedy too, because there is a before time.
Elon's mother, May, and Errol, divorced when he was 8. May said she left an abusive relationship. She ran away with the 3 children, and it was a struggle raising them as a single mom. And when money got tight, she fed the kids peanut butter sandwiches and bean soup.
In starting the company, I had nothing. I had no income source. So we found that an office was actually cheaper than an apartment in Silicon Valley. So we got this dinky little office that had a leaky roof, It was just the nastiest place you can imagine.
And you lived in it too?
And I lived in it too and showered at the YMCA.
Cast your mind back to 2012, 2010. He is genuinely, not like ironically, the most exciting entrepreneur on the planet.
What we're hoping to do with SpaceX is to push the envelope and provide a reason for people to be excited and inspired to be human.
Electric cars at a time when everyone said it was impossible.
You want to do projects that are inspiring and that make people excited about the future. Life's got to be about more than just solving problems. You want to get up in the morning and say, yes, I'm looking forward to that thing happening.
Reusable rockets at a time when nobody was doing it and said it was impossible. Solar panels at scale when everyone was saying it was impossible.
You could have the entire country be solar powered, or some combination of wind, solar, geothermal.
He showed a genuine observable commitment to the idea that the biggest problems facing humanity were worth trying to solve.
Electricity should be very cheap.
There are Australians today wondering if they can even turn on their lights. There are Australians today wondering, well, should we go without some food?
I did not expect that. We'll work harder.
I don't know if you can remember it, but people loved him, like properly loved him, not just in a parasocial, cultivated, kind of marketed way, but in a way like this person actually seems to give a fuck and is doing something extraordinary about it. The E was being drawn the right way around. Now, usually in films where there's a supervillain origin story, there's some kind of transformation that's caused by something external, like the accident or the betrayal. But actually, in the real world, it's something internal that changes. And that's something, for Elon, was always going to change, given enough power, given enough time. And how do we know that? Well, by looking at brains. So a neuroscientist called Sukhvinder Obi at McMaster University put people's heads into a transcranial magnetic simulation machine. Actually, not just their heads, their bodies as well. The bodies were attached. He's not a supervillain himself, okay? It's all right, this isn't all about supervillains. But he put those people in an MRI and he measured something called mirroring. Mirroring is a process by which your brain, when you watch somebody else do a thing, lights up in the same region it would if you were doing it yourself. It's a vicarious experience. It's what makes you wince when somebody else cuts their finger. It's what makes your chest tighten at a stranger's funeral. It's why you might flinch watching a footballer take a bad tackle when you've never played football in your life and you can't even stand it. You don't imagine yourself playing football, but you imagine the pain. And it is, in a very kind of literal kind of brain, neurological sense, the mechanism through which we feel what other people feel. Mirroring. And Obi's finding was that when people were primed to feel powerful, just primed, not actually powerful, just asked to remember a moment where they felt like being in charge, their mirroring responses dropped, like significantly. The neural pathway responsible for feeling what others feel, in his words, became anesthetized. Not broken, but anesthetized by power. Yeah, the brain, when you get success and power, essentially goes, yeah, well done mate, you've made it. Listen, I'm gonna have to take that empathy off you. Give me your fucking empathy. Just the feeling of power, the feeling. Obi's participants were students. They'd been powerful for about, 20 minutes. Imagine what happens to that neural pathway after 2 decades. 2 decades of being untouchable. Yes! And this effect has been shown in so many different ways, from so many different angles. Take, for example, Paul Piff at Berkeley, who's been running experiments on that for years and has done dozens of studies with thousands of participants. And my favorite one of this, which I do quote time and again because it's so brilliantly clear, so gettable, or grokkable, as Elon might say. And the Robert Hyland book, Stranger in a Strange Land, which is where that term comes from, and he never gives credit for, I'm sure. Maybe the copyright's out, which is probably why he chose it. Anyway, Piff and his colleagues set up a rigged game of Monopoly, right? So one player started with twice as much money and rolled 2 dice instead of 1. They collected double the salary from go. It was a massive structural advantage, and it was randomly assigned. The players knew it was random. There was just no skill involved, no merit, just you get more, they get less, and go. Then they watched what happened over time, over the game.
The rich players leaned back in their chairs. They puffed up. Their voices grew louder.
They slammed their tokens down with unnecessary force. They started eating more pretzels from the snack bowl, casually, as though even the food was theirs by right. They began taunting their opponents.
It was sweet for me. Lose all your medicine. Looks like I made some good investments.
When the game ended, researchers asked the winners, "How did you win?" Now, the obvious answer would be, because I got lucky, because of that coin flip, because the game was rigged in my favor. But not one rich player said that. Not one. Instead, they told stories about how smart they had played, how their strategy had paid off.
Power doesn't just anesthetize your ability to feel what others feel. At the same time, the same process makes you believe that you deserve everything you got. Piff's finding that cuts deepest for me across all those studies with thousands of participants is that there is a clear, consistent, measurable dose-response relationship. As wealth and power increase, empathy and compassion go down. I'll repeat it again. As wealth and power increase, empathy and compassion goes down. Repeat it after me. As wealth and power increase, empathy and compassion goes down. Scientifically, as wealth and power... Could somebody... Listen, I very rarely ask this, but if somebody could literally make a track to that, because it just needs to be out there. I mean, I might even put it on a t-shirt. I've never thought of doing merch, but I do need to find some way to make this channel cost neutral. So maybe I'll start doing merch or something like that. By the way, if you do want to support this channel, I always put a little bit of the Patreon, or you can just buy me a coffee or something like that if you've found value in the channel or if you find this video useful. But anyway, aside. As wealth and power increase, empathy and compassion goes down. But anyway, yeah, I digress. As wealth and power increase, entitlement and self-interest go up. Yeah, every time. And the science shows it so clearly. That toxin of power and wealth harms both the human beings with it and the human beings that they have power over. It should be legislated against, not glorified. I don't understand it. I mean, on the run-up to the election, he seemed so connected and real and engaged. And now he seems to be acting like a maniac. Like he's not doing what he said he'd do, and he doesn't seem connected to the people that he's got power over. What can it be? There's got to be a reason. Do you think?
That really is the power paradox of groups really want socially intelligent leaders. We gain power through what is good in human nature, but regrettably power decreases our social intelligence and really releases very often what is problematic in human behavior. And a ton of data on those ideas in the power paradox.
So with that in mind, let's look now at the Elon Musk timeline.
Yes!
Let's watch what Obi and Piff and Galinsky and a dozen other researchers would have predicted, and then watch what happened over time. 2012 to roughly 2016, Elon is still largely recognizable as the person from the before times.
My interest in the future of humanity is, I guess, as a function of reading a lot of sci-fi and philosophy as a kid, and just sort of thinking about, okay, what's important to do? Like, why do anything? What's the meaning of life? And you know, I came to the conclusion that what we really need to do is make sure that life continues into the future, and in doing so, we'll be better able to understand the nature of the universe and achieve greater enlightenment.
The mission, the language is collaborative, the floor sleeping is recent enough to be real.
So, you know, so if I see that, well, somebody is not doing this and maybe I could be helpful, then I try to do something.
And then power concentrates and the insulation from consequence becomes total and the dose gets higher. Then what happens?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself. But go f*** yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
Take, for example, in 2018.
The youngster spent 18 days in the dark, dank, flooded cave.
When Elon Musk heard that these boys were trapped in the cave, he himself went out to Thailand. This is a tweet from Elon Musk. And he brought with him an experimental submarine a mini-sub he called it. But then the Thai official leading the rescue seemed to perhaps dismiss this rescue suggestion, saying, although it's technologically sophisticated, it's not fitting in with our rescue plan. Well, Elon Musk, it would appear from the number and the tone of his tweets, took that a little personally.
Let's just pause on the submarine, right? Elon Musk, during a live international rescue operation involving 12 trapped children, looked at the situation and thought, what this needs is a small personal submarine. And he had engineers design one around the clock. But the rescue of the kids, it concluded successfully without the need for the submarine. And then, 3 days after the boys were out, a cave expert named Vernon Unsworth went on CNN and said,
just had absolutely no chance of working. So it wouldn't have gone round corners or round any obstacles. It wouldn't have made the first 50 meters into the cave. Just a PR stunt.
Which, of course, partially it was, right? But it is also rude. Fine.
What your thoughts on Elon Musk's idea was?
And stick his submarine where it hurts.
Which is, of course, rude. But also, he's a sleep-deprived man that has just helped rescue 12 children at the risk of his own life, speaking frankly on television about a submarine that wasn't used and made the rescue more complicated for him. And Elon Musk's response?
Elon Musk accused an organizer of the Thai cave rescue of being a pedophile. In a now deleted tweet, the billionaire CEO responded that he would take a prototype of his submarine all the way to the part of the cave where the boys were trapped and wrote, "Sorry, pedo guy, you really did ask for it."
You perform an act of real heroism in helping to save these kids against all the odds from this appalling situation they were in. And then a billionaire goes on social media and brands you a paedophile. I mean, I can't think of anything worse, frankly, or a bigger slap in the face to someone who was doing what you were doing.
He hired a private investigator and paid him £50,000 to find evidence that the man was actually a paedophile. And I can't say this too strongly, the submarine was the wrong shape for the cave. So to be clear, the diver did criticise Elon Musk. But look at the disproportionality of it. That diver got death threats and the general pile-on and abuse directed at him online. The most powerful man in the world comes after you and uses his huge reach and voice to try and discredit you because you mocked his unusable submarine idea. A man whose mirroring system is working can't do that. A man who can still draw the E the right way round can't do that. Because a man that can still feel what other people feel, who can still run the simulation of what it's like to be on the receiving end of false, public, devastating accusation, simply doesn't do it. But there are plenty of other examples.
People don't understand like the homeless thing because it sort of preys on people's empathy. The homeless industrial complex is really it's dark, man. I mean, you see these videos of people that are just shuffling, they're on fentanyl. These sort of charities, in quotes, they get money proportionate to the number of homeless people or number of drug zombies.
Right.
So their incentive structure is to maximize the number of drug zombies. That's why they don't arrest the drug dealers. Because if they arrest the drug dealers, the drug zombies leave. And they would stop getting money from the state of California and from all the charities.
Wait a minute. So they're in coordination with law enforcement on this?
Yeah.
So how do they have those meetings?
They're all in cahoots. So they try to keep they try to actually increase. Because that like in some cases it's somebody did an analysis when you add up all the money that's flowing, they're getting close to $1 million per homeless per drug zombie. It's like $900,000, something like some crazy amount of money is going to these organizations. So so they want to keep people just barely alive. They need to keep them in the area so they get the revenue. So that's why, like I said, they don't arrest the drug dealers because otherwise the drug zombies would leave. But they don't want to have too much. If they get too much drugs, then they die. So they're kept in this sort of perpetual zone of being addicted, but just barely alive.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw.
Take over, Elon. Yes, take. For example, even today, Elon, you tweeted this thing about George Soros. You said he wants to erode the very fabric of civilization, and Soros hates humanity. It puts you in the middle of the partisan divide in the country. It makes you a lightning rod for criticism. I mean, do you like that?
You know, I'm reminded of the scene in The Princess Bride. Great movie.
Great movie.
Where he confronts the person who killed his father. And he says, offer me money. Offer me power. I don't care.
So you just don't care.
Now, if what I was talking about was just Elon Musk, it was just a story about one man's unique pathology, it would be interesting, but it isn't just that. Because the stats are really clear, and you can see it from Jeffrey Epstein down. Like Jeff Bezos.
Everyone working in the warehouse has a GPS system which tracks their every move and whether they're working at the speed Amazon demands.
They were monitored every minute of the day on the performance console. You could log on at any time and see how many people were picking, packing, and what their rates were. And if their rates weren't up to scratch, you'd have to go and give them a bit of a boost or release them.
By release, he means sack them.
In the issue of working conditions, I'm very proud of our working conditions.
They said it's extremely hot in there. They said they have had people to pass out because of the extreme hotness in there. Who get doctored or get TOT time for going to the bathroom? Who get doctored for going to get water if you need water if you have to leave off your station? It's unsafe because you consistently working fast-paced 10 hours, only 2 breaks.
And we have very good communications with our employees, so we don't believe that we need a union to be an intermediary between us and our employees.
They describe a points system deliberately designed, they believe, to catch them out. Workers get penalised for leaving early, sick, for talking in the aisles, or even spending too long on the toilet. 3 strikes and you're out.
Bezos built his company from a garage. He once understood deeply what it means to be uncertain, vulnerable, at the mercy of forces larger than yourself. And he now uses that knowledge not to protect his workers from fear, but to engineer it. He didn't forget what fear felt like. He remembers exactly what fear felt like. He's just switched it from, I don't want people to feel this, to, this is useful. That's not forgetting your humanity. That's filing it under tools, because you can't put yourself in somebody else's shoes. You can only see it from your own perspective. One of my favourite examples of this is Google's founding motto. I don't know if you remember this, but it was, don't be evil. And they dropped it, which is tantamount to saying, oh, maybe we actually might need to be a little bit evil, but we don't want to get sued for it. This is our growth curve if we're not evil, but this is our growth curve if we are evil. One of the things I really love about the don't be evil motto is one of those rules that only needs to exist if evil is actually on the table, right? They put it there, it's there. Like, you don't go to a bakery whose motto is, don't put glass in the bread. As the power accumulated and the insulation from the effects of their growth grew and got bigger, and the people that remembered why the motto existed in the first place stopped being in the rooms, those rooms where decisions about what the company was going to be doing next were made, it shifted. And that's the institutional version of Obi's finding. Organisations, like individuals, can have their mirroring systems anaesthetised. And you can see it so clearly on the world stage. Putin in power for 25 years. Xi Jinping made himself president for life in 2018. Netanyahu has been in power for years, decades, I think. Trump has had power all of his life. Look at the wars happening right now. Look at the leaders prosecuting those wars. Look at how long they've held power. Look at the wealth they accumulated before they even came into that power. The science isn't surprised. The science is just watching the dose-response relationship play out at a civilizational scale. And the democratic founders of our nations knew this. And that's what I find extraordinary. The people who designed modern democracy understood all of this, actually, without a single brain scanner, without Obi or Piff or Galinsky or any of it. They understood it by looking at history, from watching what unchecked power did to human beings across centuries of recorded civilization, from reading what happened to Caesar, to Cromwell, to every king who outlived their own empathy. The US Constitution doesn't just limit what the president can do, it limits how long a president can do it for. 2 terms, 8 years, that's your dose. Then off you jog. Go home, touch your grass, go to a farmer's market and be confused at the prices of cheese, like a normal person. The entire architecture, the checks and balances, the separation of powers, the independent judiciary, it wasn't designed because the founders distrusted any particular person. The founders understood that the office was the problem, not the person. And what's the first thing that a powerful leader does? Pinochet, Pol Pot, Hitler. What do? They kill the press, they take over the judiciary, they consolidate power as much as possible. They were trying to engineer a radiation shield into the structure of government, and it worked imperfectly, incompletely, with constant pressure against it from people who would prefer no shield. Now, ask yourself, where are the radiation shields around the people today with the most power? Where are they? The billionaires, the trillionaires. Where's the term limit on a man who owns the satellites, the cars, the social media platform, and the government contracts at the same time? Where is it? I've looked, I can't find it. What I can find is the same man who owns the satellites also owns the platform where you'd complain about him owning the satellites, which is a level of control or vertical integration that even the people that developed the game Monopoly did not anticipate. But where are the checks? Where are the balances? Well, the checks are going to the pockets of politicians, that's true. And the balances are just spreadsheets. Because as far as I can see, the governments are too frightened to bring in wealth taxes because the billionaires own the newspapers and the biggest companies in the world. Because the biggest reason not to bring in wealth taxes, to put their power in check, is threat, right? But the millionaires will leave and they'll crash the economy. Lovely economy you got there. Shame if something would happen to it. Still, you're not going to tax me, are you? So don't you worry about it. All my money's in assets, so you can work away with the income tax as much as you like. But there is a hack, because there is a way to make sure that this doesn't happen. How do we hack our own brains to stay grounded when we're in power? Well, there are ways, but they involve accounting for the way that brains change with power, which is reconnecting the brain's empathy circuits. Potentially the most emotive example I've heard of this is from a Harvard professor called Roger Fisher. Roger Fisher, you wouldn't know necessarily who he is, but he's a man who helped negotiate the Camp David peace accords, which almost brought peace in the Middle East. He helped work to dismantle South Africa's apartheid. He spent his entire career trying to get powerful people to understand the consequences of their decisions. And he published an article in the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. And he was thinking about nuclear weapons in this case, specifically about the terrifying emotional distance the decision to use them entails, right? So if I push this button, hundreds of thousands of innocent people will die. Right. I mean, shouldn't we have a cover for it or something? Yeah, well, get one. Oh, f***! And he wrote about how a president sitting in a room full of advisors, surrounded by euphemisms and acronyms and management language like PSYOP and Plan 1 and Alpha Line XYZ and Project Ore and Thunder, communicate the decision. And how those people communicate the decision could authorize the deaths of millions of people in a process that felt, in a room like that, like an administrative act. Because it's a button. Because the problem is the distance between the decision and the consequence. And Roger Fisher understood that distance. That distance is exactly how power does its damage. And he proposed a solution. Take the nuclear launch codes and implant that capsule surgically next to the heart of a young, well-paid volunteer. Volunteer is the key word here. Someone that the president sees every day. So Fisher took this proposal to the Pentagon, and their response? My God, That's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button. Do you think that might be the point? The proposal was, let's make it feel real. And the objection was, but then it would feel real. Now, I'm not saying that it's the perfect idea by this person about in the heart of a kind of young person volunteer, but the fact that the objection wasn't with the manner, but with the idea itself tells you everything. Because they're not objecting to the killing, they're objecting to the feeling of the killing. We want to do the killing, we just want it to be comfortable. And we want to feel about it the way we approve of a planning application. You know, when's that ever gone wrong? But that response from a serious, senior, intelligent person tells you everything that you need to know about unchecked power and what it does to the human brain. They'd already drawn the E the wrong way around, which is the dehumanizing effect of war. The distance between pressing the button and the effect that it has. Because Elon Musk really is a supervillain. He really is. And it's not because something broke in him. It's because the science told us decades ago that that's what would happen to 99% of people, everyone, given enough power, given enough time, given enough insulation from the consequences of what you decide. The mirroring goes quiet. Oh no, what's happened? They used to be so reasonable and now they've changed. Oh, what could it be? I'll tell you what, it's not rocket science. Actually, it's psychological science. And the studies are easy to read. So f***ing read them.
I realised the other day that Elon Musk is Batman. And by that I mean, Batman is not a superhero, he's a supervillain, right? Now, because I was thinking, what is Batman, right? Batman is basically a really rich guy that thinks he's going to solve the whole world's problems by inventing a load of tech, right? You know, oh what, there's a load of problem in Gotham, oh, I'll build my Batcopter, my Batmobile, but Batman never spends 1 bat cent on the real cause of Gotham's problems. Why is Gotham overrun with crime? The problem's fundamentally economic, isn't it? Yeah? Like, if Batman really cared about Gotham's crime, like, I'll tell you what, if I had $1 billion, because people say, I said this to my friend, and my friend was like, no, Batman's the best superhero. And the reason why is because he doesn't have superpowers. I was like, fuck off. Batman has superpowers. He's the billionaire Bruce Wayne. And being a billionaire is the best superpower you can have. Like, if I wake up tomorrow with a different if I wake up tomorrow with a genuine superpower, the superpower of flight, right? I get to fly myself to work. Having a great commute. If it's not raining, I save £6 on fucking oyster. If I wake up tomorrow with $1 billion, I fly my jet over work, bombing the HR department. Yeah? Like, seriously, you give me $1 billion, you give me $1 billion, I can solve crime in Gotham like that, right? No, Bruce, listen, Batman, whatever your fucking name is, Elon, right? What you do is you go to the most rundown part of Gotham, right? And you open an artisanal bakery, escape room, a kombucha brewery, and you let the fucking hipsters drive those criminals out. It's called gentrification, isn't it, Bruce? Yeah. You know what, Bruce? You would have learned that in business school, wouldn't you? If you weren't too busy dressing up in tights and punching the mentally ill. You know what? And I'm glad your parents are dead. Yeah. No, I said it, I am. I'm glad who takes an 8-year-old to an opera? Cunts. That's it.
That was great, but you know, you need therapy.